morning, everyone. It's good to be here, 2024. Thanks to the PC member for giving me this opportunity to start the presentation this year. So we'll be talking about digital infrastructure and digital economy. See, yesterday I was reading the article done by I think it's the message that the CEO of MTN kind of shared. And I was reading the article, but what I picked there was the contribution that this community adds to the GDP of the country, which trying to let the regulators know and the government know how important our role is in the growth of the Nigerian economy. And the interesting part is, I was talking about same thing, right? About how digital infrastructure drives digital economy. So we're going to the slide. Next slide, please. So these are some of the takeaways and things we'll talk about. The backbone of digital infrastructure, building the backbone, and also the capacity drivers, and how digital economics how digital infrastructure serve as an economic catalyst, and what we need to power digital revolution, and the policies and incentives for growth. Next slide, please. All right. So this is just a representation of the contribution that digital infrastructure contributes to the digital economy. And if we look at the spread across the different regions, we can see that in EME, which we all belong to, the contribution is about 12%, which is about $2.5 trillion. Look at APAC, look at EMER, but the interesting thing about this slide is still to buttress the point that we contribute significantly to the growth of every economy that we found ourselves in terms of what we do, from building the infrastructure, the interconnections, and how we drive the growth of the respective economy through all of the initiatives that we undertake as a group. Next slide, please. Yeah, still same. Next slide. Okay. So when you look at the spread of infrastructure, I try to find a correlation between the broadband penetration, data center capacity, and the growth of the economy. Try to create a link to see how they work hand in hand. And I try to put that together to see how the growth of broadband penetration drives the growth of data center capacities, and how that translates into the economic growth in each of the communities that we invest heavily in digital infrastructure. If you look at the penetration across key markets, you see that UK is about 95%, Nigeria 46%, but I think we're growing. And if you look at the spread across the different markets with the respective penetration, now how does this translate to when you start looking at data center capacity? Next slide, please. Just click next. Or All right, so a closer look at the EMEA region. Um, Try to put this together using different sources to say in America you have close to 3,000 data centers. And if we look at the combined data center capacity is about 12 gigawatts of power. And if you look at the penetration, it's about 89%. I'm trying to find a correlation between the two. Penetration rate, data center capacity, to see how all this come together and how it drives the growth of digital economy. Brazil is another focal point. Brazil is an emerging market in terms of data center growth that has been seen, and this is largely driven by the value that a city like Fortaleza, which serves as the submarine interconnection hub for the South American region, in terms of how it drives the growth of interconnection and also data center in that market. At the end of the day, what does that mean? What does that translate to? Translates to more digital jobs, opening the economy, making people have access to the internet, creating more digital awareness, and helping people to optimize and automate their operation. Next, please, let's look at next market. Now, when we compare that to Europe, you see that Europe has, especially the UK, if you look at the penetration rate, it's almost 100%. We compare that to the data center capacity of about 1.5, the number of data centers, same thing with France. So we can see that the correlation is once the penetration rate increase, the data center capacity also increase. I'm trying to find a correlation between these two, and it seems linear so far, that as the penetration rate increases, the data center capacity also increases, and that's what drives the growth of All right, I have 0 minutes left. Next slide, please. Yeah, so I think this is the interesting part. Okay, I think this is the interesting part, looking at where we are as a continent and where we are as a country. Nigeria, comparing it with South Africa, and we can also marry that correlation to say, based on the penetration rate we see in South Africa, we can also understand why the data center capacity growth is almost twice in terms of capacity, what they have compared to what we have as a country. Now, this is not meant to just showcase these challenges, but to spotlight the opportunity and the potential for growth and the factors influencing those growths, which tells us that the more we invest in building the fiber infrastructure, opening up the market, the more we make internet accessible, the more we have investors investing in building data center capacity, the more we have the large CSPs coming to host their service locally, which drives the consumption of data center capacity, thereby creating enormous potential and economic opportunity for the region. Nigeria, for example, especially Lagos. Lagos has been identified as a key emerging market, especially for data center growth. And it's expected that more data center investment is going to come in to drive further interconnection growth and the growth of the economy. Next slide. All right, so putting this together in terms of how the outlay looks like when you look at the GDPs of all of those countries that we have spotlighted, and the data center capacity, the internet penetration, we can see that the digital economic side of it is actually helping in driving the growth of the GDPs in each of those countries where you have pervasive um, digital infrastructure penetration, both from a broadband standpoint and also from a data center capacity standpoint. Uh, we're green. In the slide there, we're green. We look small, but we're small but mighty. Mighty in terms of the potential that we have. Because what it means is if we look at the population that we have, the penetration rate, we can see the kind of potential that we have by growing those numbers in terms of penetration rate. And we know once that grows, the data center will grow, and all the economic activities interconnected with the value chain will help stimulate the growth of our economy. Next slide. So this report was, I kind of said, okay, let me share this with the team. It's not coming out clear, but I know what's there. This is Silicon Valley, that's New York, I think that's London, Tokyo, Frankfurt, and I think that should be Singapore. So it kind of gives a different outlook and flavor, just showing us all of the key data center or locations where digital infrastructure investment is immersive, and the distribution in terms of the data center usage. You have a mix of network providers, cloud providers, enterprise company, and financial service company utilizing all of these services. Now, this is from a service standpoint, kind of showing us the different color in terms of the mix, consumption of these services. But beyond the services, there's so much more behind this in terms of what powers it. Because by the time we start thinking of the companies providing the servers, the chips, the power grid companies, the data center companies enabling this, and all the other companies that come to life because of all these infrastructures that all of us here are putting together, we can see how our activities are enabling the growth of all of the services that you can see on this slide. Next, please. All right, this is a case study. This report was done by KPMG. I think this was released last week. That kind of show a sample, an example of what a company can do in terms of impact for the growth of an economy. So this report was done by KPMG, focusing on Equinix, my parent company, in terms of the impact of the digital investment that they are making in the UK economy and how it's driving direct, indirect jobs and the growth of economic activities within the country. Next slide. So what does that mean? It means that if we invest, we will drive the economy. And what are we doing as Main One and also Equinix in West Africa? In the South-South region, we are investing heavily. We are building about 600 plus kilometers of both long haul and metro fiber to interconnect about 5 states. So this is just leveraging the second landing that 2Africa is doing in Nigeria so that we can create that economic corridor for the South-South region so that access to internet will become easier and better, so we can also help stimulate that part of the country. Lagos, we know these are some of the investments we continue to make in terms of data center capacities and how we continue to build the ecosystem. There are new facilities that are undergoing construction, like the LG3, the LG4, which will come online starting from next year. And within now and the next 2 years, we'll have about 3 more facilities that will come online, bringing more data center capacity into the ecosystem. So this South-South investment would help propel the growth that we think is expected of the region, because Lagos today has about 8 to 9 subsea cables. We have most of the data center in Lagos. So what we're doing is building this infrastructure to open up the region, not just the fiber asset, but also IBX location, a data center that would also help drive the economy of the South-South region. Next slide. So in terms of what it means, like I said, from all the report, I kind of take this as a snapshot from one of the data center report that kind of spotlight Lagos as a huge economic potential, as the next emerging market that we think will go into top 10 in EME if we harness the potential. And the potentials are there, but there are issues that needs to be addressed, from power availability to land availability, and also policy and incentive. I think those are the key objectives, key things that we need to look at that will help us to propel Nigeria and also Lagos as a hub of data center in EME. Next slide. All right, so I was hoping I would present this when our guys, are here from the government, talking about all the incentives and policy initiatives that similar cities and state or government have done to drive the growth of digital infrastructure in their country. Hoping we could get similar approach in our country because of the economic potential, the values that we have all seen in terms of the contribution that we bring into the economy. So this is an example of the kind of incentive that a company like Amazon received from the city of Virginia, which help them to invest, build more infrastructure to create direct jobs and indirect jobs based on those incentives that are provided by the government. Next slide. So I think it's same here also for South Africa, based on some of the policies that they came up with, and also the incentive by the government to incentivize the digital infrastructure companies because of the economic potentials, the growth trajectory that comes with this kind of investment. So it requires government and private partnership to help drive the growth. Next slide. All right, so unleashing Nigeria's digital potential. Let me just read it. It says, Nigeria's digital economy can be the engine that drives the GDP growth if we invest in technology, foster innovation, and enable collaboration. The reason why this is important, because we know as a country, we need to drive growth of the economy because of all the financial situation we find ourselves in. And technology serves as a catalyst, right, to help drive that growth that is expected. I think that's the end of my presentation, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Shayo. Please, let's give him a round of applause once again. Hold on, there might be questions. Hold on. So, please, do we have any questions for him? Yes. Any other person? Questions?
Thank you, Shaya, for the presentation. My name is Dewale. Question, do you have any sense of the magnitude of taxes that the sector is today paying? For example, you want to make a request to the government so that we can have the kind of tax breaks that we saw in the South African example, and which was the other one you gave. So I'd like to know, do you have an idea of how many million we're today paying out range?
Well, in total, I think you should be surprised if I say I know, because I'm in technology, right? So maybe FIRS and all those people will know. But I think you should be, I think the ICT or telecom sector should be second, or if not first, right? When you look at the spread of the magnitude of what we do. So yes, there's a part of it where it's like chicken and egg. We make a lot of money from this sector. Do we give them the tax break and lose all this money? Or do we continue to charge this money? And how do we get this money back? Now, I think for us, we'll continue to advocate. We've seen, all I can say is we've seen samples of where it was done and it worked and it was successful. Maybe not 100% tax break, but certain incentives that help drive the investment. I'll give an example. If you try to build a facility of this magnitude in Nigeria, for those who have done it, they know the process, they know what it took from start to finish. Question is, can it be better? Yes. Are there where we can get certain incentive from the government to kind of encourage those kind of investment? The answer is yes. So maybe not 100% tax break. Maybe it's on the policies, the processes, and making sure that it's attractive, right? At the end, it's attractive for investment because we know that at the end of the day, when this investment are made, the economic potential outweighs, maybe the direct benefit we're seeking from those taxes. Because if you create, so maybe you give company A a tax break, and that company is able to invest and create 30,000 jobs, right? From that 30,000 jobs, then the government can get the pay tax, right, from those 30,000 individuals. But if you don't enable that kind of growth, then you have 30,000 unemployed people that you get nothing from. So I don't know if I answered.
Okay, thanks. So I think what it points to is the fact that we need to put a little more work into helping the government or the regulators see that there is potential.
Exactly.
Today, they're probably looking at it as this is our cash cow, so why are you telling us to give these breaks? So we need to show them that don't eat it today. You can earn much more from it down the line. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other question? We can take one more.
Shayo, thanks so much for your presentation. Well done. Now, in developed world, as you presented, the gap is we are 46% right now. What do you think we can do to drive government's adoption of technology infrastructure? Because in the big economies, government is the biggest consumer. So imagine 774 local governments in Nigeria are fully integrated. You know what that could do? So how can we, flip that so that government is the biggest consumption of technology? Thank you.
All right. I think that's one of the reasons why we're here this morning. Creating that awareness, talking about it, doing presentations like this, inviting the commissioner, the government, the people in the the regulatory firm so that we'll continue to showcase the benefits of adopting technology. Now, in terms of consumption of digital services, I think there are several steps to it. Now, there's the process part, there's the technology part, and all of this needs to come together. And also there is the value part. But from an investment standpoint, like we from the private sector, all we can do is to invest and showcase the benefits of using technology to drive to drive our optimized processes. But the government on their own also needs to be willing to adopt the use of technology. And the only thing we can do is continue to advocate direct, indirect conversation with the key critical stakeholders, letting them understand why they need to use this technology, not just for the benefit of their own direct organization, but the entire potential that it brings to the country. For Nigeria, we know it's tough, but I think we're making progress because I know there are certain government agencies now, if you want to consume their services, you can do it online. 10 years ago, that was not the case. At least I know if you want to file some of your taxes, you can go to the FIRS portal and kind of do that, right? 10 years ago, that was not possible. So it shows that we're making progress, and there's still more work to do. And I think if we continue to advocate, have these conversations, I think we'll get there. But should it be faster? Maybe yes. But can we move as fast as this? I think I'll leave that to the government.
Thank you so much. If I can get one more question, just 1 minute, and if you can answer in less than 2 minutes, we can still accommodate one more. Okay. Thank you so much, Ayo.